And now, as I told you at the beginning, you will not have the possibility to speak, but you will be able to post your questions. And I would like to focus now first on the first question, your feedback on the overall design and the high-level architecture of TAPipedia, and then we will move to the next question. So please take a bit of time and provide your comments to question number 1. I can see Kabi is typing, so the others who are not typing but have comments to the other questions, you might be already type it in a Word document and then paste it into the chat box, so it will be faster. A few of you came later, I noted this, they joined us later. So at the beginning of the presentation we provided an overall background of the tropical agriculture platform and where this TAPipedia fits into this overall concept. So Kabi is posting the question, the conceptual development has been over 3 years. Are some observations made as a result of early consultations already out of date? It would be good if you can specify which parts you are referring to current best practice in digital. How can we be sure that we are responding to current best practice in digital communications? I would like to ask Nikos to respond to these questions from Kabi.
Yes, let me clarify a little bit the way that we took into consideration this process. So the initial consultation from 2012 was indeed a rich source of information, but it also indeed had lots of things that today are not the current best practice. That's why I'm saying that it was one of the sources of requirements, but not the single one, and we filtered these requirements according to, first of all, the way that we see the current state of art, being able to respond to these requirements, and second, to the way that such a system can be implemented in the context of the particular activity and the resources in place to put something like this. So I will give you one example. There were lots of requests for setting up a different repository for good practices and case studies, a different catalog of available initiatives and resources. Today, this is something that we can organize properly in one repository, in one knowledge repository that can support different knowledge types and content types. So it's not something that a few years ago you could implement with a single repository system. You would need several databases to handle this. Today, you can have one database with an appropriate flexible design that can support different and multiple content types. I hope that I'm responding to the question.
Thank you. Now I would like to go to another question. I mean, there was another question of Kabi. It took long. Okay, we say you said that we will address recent developments, and the process took so long because there was actually no funding to develop the TAPipedia, and only last year when we got engaged, we resourced funding. We could were successful together with AgriNatura, and this is why we could start concrete actions. Now there is a question from Needy, who says the design is very comprehensive. How long will be the actual development phase? This is actually what we will explain at the very end of this presentation. So as soon we have completed this process, we will start with the development phase, and we should have something concretely by the end of the year. Then there is Hector Mongi. He says relevance term has been used very frequently in this presentation. How does the design linked to execution and overall outcome of the TAPipedia? Maybe I leave this to Nikos.
If I understand it correctly, I think that this question is also related to some way to the question by Bernard on how did we take some decisions about which are the groups of users that we are going to serve. And this means that how did we take some decisions in the design that will deliver something that will be of use and relevance to this particular group compared to that particular group. It's true that at the beginning we started with a very wide range of possible audiences that everybody should and could benefit by a platform that will provide access to materials on agricultural innovation and from the systems perspective, and also to support capacity development activities and initiatives. But we had, given the time frame that we have to respond to and also the funding that is in place, we had to prioritize also in relation to who we should serve first. So keeping in mind that there is going to be a framework that will give a big picture of how you can take some capacity development perspectives and components and put them in place in a specific region and a specific country. The emphasis was first given to the organizations and the people that will take advantage of this framework, and that will need some supportive materials and some supportive tools to put in practice. And then after they put this in practice and we get some good case studies in the targeted countries, or we want to have relevant case studies to show them from other countries and regions, then we also have to find a way to connect with the organizations that can serve and give this content back to us. The organizations that are working with the farmers and that can come back and provide ideas and examples of innovation case studies. So this is kind of the logic that we followed in prioritizing the needs and the groups, and also the way that this design should be put in place. And when I say we, it's also after discussing this and refining on this with the expert group of TAP that met on March.
Okay, thank you, Nikos. We have also a question of Bernard, or a couple of questions saying who decided which groups of users constituted a priority or not. Final decisions made about this. Claim architecture and content can answer the needs of these very different target audiences. Actually, what we did, Bernard, we considered the top partners and their priorities as expressed by the TAP partners, by the Global Task Force, by the TAP expert group, and final decisions have not met about this, but we will, so Nikos will share his report with you, so everybody who was involved earlier in this process can comment, and then this will be presented to the Global Task Force in July, and who will do the final decision. But this is, let's say, the initial setup of the architecture. architecture, and as I understand, I'm not an information management or design person. Additional components can be added as needed. Yeah. Um, Regarding the questions, can the same architecture and content can answer the needs of different target audiences? Maybe Nikos, you have also some comments on this, some responses on this.
Yes, this is an open and modular architecture, and therefore there could be different parts of services being implemented so that different target audiences can be served. That's exactly also the way that I try to describe the connection of TAPipedia with other existing systems, that it can filter and disseminate information that is the TAPipedia platform is cataloging to other systems that might be in place and are serving specific audiences. I like the example of TECA very much. TECA is focusing on organizations working with farmers and presenting in detail good case studies. Content from TAPipedia could be channeled to the TECA platform and presented through the TECA platform. So that's exactly the logic of this architecture.
A couple of questions. I mean, I hope that you have a bit more time than 1 hour. I would just like to take the question of CAPI. Are there other taxonomies supported through the Drupal platform? And I'm thinking of the GAX platform, which might supersede AgroVoc and provide crosswalks to other thesauri, including CAP Thesaurus. And I would like to, regarding the question number 1, I would then conclude, but however, all people who have posted questions will be responded to, yeah, after this call. Nikos, could you please respond to Kapi?
Yes, and the answer is yes, that as long as you have a platform that is providing you with an interoperable way to access any vocabulary or classification, which is what GAX will be doing, linking from one classification system to another in a machine readable way, so you can use an AgroVoc term and then see which is the CABI thesaurus term that it corresponds to, and then what is the NAL classification term that it corresponds to. You can take advantage of this in your system. And in a very similar way, any other system that will be providing this kind of machine readable access to a classification, to a vocabulary, the way that this has been designed will be very easily crosswalked and mapped to different classifications, such a different classification.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And so I suggest that we move to the second question. Do you have specific comments or suggestions for the key TAPipedia components? Please, it's open.
I can also quickly reflect on some of the pending questions that I see, if you don't mind, Karen.
It's good that you take advantage to respond while people can prepare the questions for the second, the questions regarding the second team. Thanks.
Okay, as there is a question, yeah. A question about whether a standalone app version without internet connection can be set up. This would require a separate investment and some separate resources on an application that can be running on its own, powered by content and powered by information coming from TAPipedia. It would require a little bit of thinking about how to do the synchronization and how this can work. It is supported by the architecture, but it's not part of this phase of development because there are some things that have to be built before. But this is the type of open architecture that can support then a next step of building such an extension, such a service. There are two questions that are a little bit non-technical. I consider them non-technical. Ata is asking about the way to get buy-in and facilitation of such a platform, which the way that you can address it in such a design is by taking the decision to make it open and connected with existing systems. So designing TAPipedia in a closed manner and saying that relevant information is going to be only in the database of TAPipedia would be against such an open approach. The fact that we are designing it in a way that it will invite members of TAP, but also other organizations, to let us know about what kind of databases they have, what kind of materials they have, what kind of relevant initiatives they have, and also put in place a specific mechanism, the sharing mechanism, so that this information can be very easily communicated to TAPipedia. That's the way I believe that we should design the system so that it can facilitate the whole process. Again, the CABI question on what is the model for editing, curating, and moderating content. This is something that has to be specified as a content authoring and curation workflow. It is a little bit outside the conceptual design. What I can say is that Drupal technically and the way that this is designed can support such workflows. So Drupal has the components and modules necessary to support collaborative working and editing of content. Therefore, it's a platform that can support such a need that is going to be important. And the question of Julian, yes, I think I mentioned it that this design and also the use of Drupal is also allowing us to easily create different language versions of the platform. It is important to say that the content authoring and creation component should also be implemented in a way that will allow multiple language versions of the content to be produced. So the framework to be the content around the framework to be easily edited and translated and modified and presented in different languages. CABI, yes, there is a matrix of other systems that have been considered, other content management systems like Joomla and other systems. It is assessing different options against the requirements. This is part of the full conceptual design report that we will circulate to receive your comments during the next 10 days or so. So you can take a look at the matrix. My apologies for not including it in the presentation. The question of Julian about using a document repository or links. A repository that is only storing content is not enough. So you need a repository that will be able to store actual content, so content that will be uploaded, files that will be uploaded and stored by the system, but also descriptions about things that are hosted somewhere else. Links and descriptions, metadata records about things that are being stored elsewhere.
Nikos, I think there were also additional questions about Needy. She said she provided a comment about channeling information from different platforms. She says it's important to ensure the specificity of information that integrates with the broad objectives for objectives of capacity development for agriculture innovation systems is filtered well for audiences reaching TAPipedia. Yeah, and I think this is, we can only agree to this. Technically, do you have comments on this, Nikos?
So technically and service-wise, the way that we envision this as a service is by having a very simple interface, one of the pages of TAPipedia, and very simple mechanisms, very simple icons and ways in which the members, the partners can actually use to inform, to post, to let us know, to let TAPipedia know about the materials that they have, the information that they have. I will explain how this works. It's a quite elaborate process that has to do with the way that you publish metadata about materials that you have in your own systems. But let's say that from the perspective of the user, the mechanism will be quite simple. The interface will be as simple as possible. And there is no expectation that everyone will have an elaborate technology like a functioning API to push materials. Different modalities and ways to provide access to the material will be given. So either you just point the TAPipedia team to the website where your materials are being listed, and the hard work of describing which are the relevant resources stays at the content expert working in the TAPipedia team, or you have an already functioning database with an API or another way of exposing information about the content, and there is an automated mechanism that is reading this API. And I think that, again, the question of Kabi about the way, the model that this will be run from the content side has to do with a content workflow, and it's a little bit outside the technical design. But the technical design will support different workflows, will support both an automated mechanism or semi-automated mechanism where the partners can post the materials and let the team know about what they have, but also a TAPipedia content team that will be actively looking for relevant things out there. So this kind of design will be able to support both of them.
Another question for clarification about this from Kabi. Is, so can you easily consume APIs, but if you don't have that partners have to edit the CMS manually? Okay, Kabi says you answered this already. Okay.
Yes, the design allows you to support any type of workflow, both consuming APIs, but also having a team that will be editing this manually. Whether the team will be a TAPipedia content team, or if there are no resources to have such a team, to ask the partners to do so, it's a different decision. Right? It doesn't have to do with the technology design. API, to explain, is a technology term that means that one system, one platform can automatically talk to another one by sending a question to its database. So every time that something is changing in one database, the other one is automatically notified, and the two systems are doing this without a manual intervention of a human being.
Okay, thank you, Nikos. So do we have other questions related to or specific comments on the choice of the software? I think this was already responded to, but there might be additional questions, and then we have other comments. So please let us know, and we will expand a bit. So there is a question from Bernard. Support for virtual meeting as part of TAPipedia could be very useful. Okay, this is one idea we should further explore and discuss. Nikos, do you have some comments on this? If this is feasible?
And it would be interesting to, because I mentioned this also during the presentation, it would be interesting to reflect a little bit on that. That technology-wise, IT-wise, every functionality like this can be possible. There are software modules that can support something like this. My recommendation and my concern, based on my experience, is about whether TAPipedia as a new platform will be the right place to support something like this, because it will require some investment of resources to develop and put in place the software part, this software module, and will also require some investment of resources to keep this up and running, to keep the organization and the facilitation of the way that people will be talking to each other and maintaining and supporting the community. This is why my recommendation is that we look for this kind of communication and collaboration between practitioners and different community members. We look at existing platforms. We look at one of the existing systems where people are already going, and where you also have people that are already facilitating the communication and the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye to the CABI team. They have to leave us, and we will make sure that any answers to questions as a result of this conversation are copied to all. Yes, we will do this. Then there was another comment by Bernard, need to leave shortly. Okay, also he has to leave. So of course the documents will be shared with everybody, and also the detailed report. Thank you for joining. And now we have Nidi's comment on YPAD, and we are using Drupal for YPAD and with our member network of over 10,000. Oh, it moves. Let me see. Okay, let me see. This field moved, so I could not read. So it's Nidi's comments. Says it's a good system. It is responding fairly well to accommodate the traffic. I think it will suit the objectives of TAPipedia and its expanding network. Thank you very much, Nidi, for sharing your experiences with YPAD. Thank you. So then there was Hector. I have experience with platform integration in a developing country perspective. Also, this TAPipedia project is very well designed. Financial requirements should be strictly considered to have a meaningful outcome. Any interruption to the work plan or has a lot of implications for the future success. This is correct. Then there is Myra providing comments. Thanks for the discussions. It is interesting especially to also understand how these are all going to be implemented and linked to gathering content, especially motivating partners to buy in. This is correct. This is very important, and we have to discuss this among the TAP Global Task Force what we can do. And of course, any suggestions from your parts how we can do this better is welcome. I'm giving also a word to just a last.
So, as a last comment, I would like to thank everyone for the very interesting feedback and all your questions and the points that you are raising that are very also good for us to see which parts of the design we should keep in mind and remind the next steps about the next steps that the report, the actual document will be circulated to the expert group of TAP. If you are in the audience and you're not a member of this group, feel free to give us your email so that we also include you in the circulation, and until the end of next week to provide your comments on the document so that we can incorporate all your comments and your feedback in the version that we will present at the Global Task Force, so that we get also their feedback. And then we will be ready by mid-July with the final version of the design so that implementation can start.
Okay, thank you, Nikos. Thank you, all of you who have